All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another marketing meetup. My name's James Sambrook. I am Joe's co-founder, and I'm giving him the day off. So let me know in the chat where you are. Make sure you change the little toggle at the bottom from host and panelists to everyone. You can do the same in the Q&A as well. I'm in Birmingham today. It's both sunny and snowy at the same time, which is very odd. And Kirstie's in Birmingham too, so we've got a big Midland contingent today. Oh, we've got somebody from the USA. Yes, we've got London, Shrewsbury, Birmingham too. Hi, Francesca. Norfolk, excellent. That's great. We've got. Let's keep that chat function buzzing, and it's lovely to see. Keep it going throughout the talk today. I've got one ask for you. I would love to see your biggest takeaway from today. It might be my dog snoring. Apologies for that. It might be that Kirstie actually comes up with some great advice, and you screenshot that, or you make a note of it and share it on whatever social media platform you prefer, whether that's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. But please do let us know what you've learned, and it also gives us a way of sort of spreading the message of the marketing meetup, and we can get some more people, we can help more people, we can connect more people. So today's guest, Kirstie, what a legend. She is often seen in the Birmingham marketing meetup dressed in brightly coloured dungarees or a leopard print jumpsuit, something like that, which tells you a lot about Kirstie's personality. She's also the founder of Social Circle, which is a social media networking thing that goes on in Birmingham. It's another brilliant event. She's director of a retail e-commerce agency called Cake Agency. She's the host of a podcast called The Joy of Retail. She guest lectures at Birmingham Uni. And, well, more importantly than anything, she has saved my ass so many times through running the Birmingham Marketing Meetup. I cannot tell you. In fact, one of the more recent ones that we held in their offices, I ran out of drinks, went into a mild panic, and turned around, and there's Kirstie with 2 massive crates of Budweiser, just saving the day. So she's a legend, and she's one of those people that gives without asking for anything and does it with a huge smile on her face. But more importantly for you guys today, she also knows her stuff too. So it's not just the tactical stuff that we're so often sort of sucked in by, but it's the true understanding of strategy and brand. And so I think you're going to really enjoy this talk today. As always, we have a presentation by our guest Kirstie, and then there'll be Q&A at the end. So make sure that you get your questions in the little Q&A box. If you wiggle your mouse, that's at the bottom. And if you see a question that you really like that you want answering, then give it a little thumbs up and it'll rise up, and we'll ask those sort of popular questions at the end. As you know, the Marketing Meetup has partners who help the business happen. And today I wanted to just give a little shout out to Storyblock, who are a fairly new partner. We've got sort of free rein to talk about our sponsors in lots of different ways. But I noticed Harry Dry, who runs Marketing Examples, is also supported by Storyblock. So, you know, they're helping lots of really cool people out there. And it said at the top of his email, it said, with Storyblock, Oatly built 16 websites in 2 months. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And frankly, when you go and look at what they do, it makes WordPress look ancient. And so Joe and I are going to be sharing more about their headless CMS and how it works. And we're going to go through, make some content around how we're going to be using it. But also they have a webinar, which I'm just going to put in the chat here on Thursday, which looks really good. And I thought you might want to go to that. It's marketing trends that you don't need to know about. But actually have a read of the description in there. It sounds like a super fascinating webinar, and if you're learning, which is maybe why you're here, then that might be something else you could do. Also, massive thanks to some of our other partners, Impression, Redgate, Cambridge Marketing College, and Brand Recruitment. They're all incredible humans, and they are the reason we can bring you these webinars every week. And do what's that, James? I don't think it was the full link. Please, can you reshare? Okay, I will do that throughout, and if not, we'll send it in a follow-up email afterwards. that's my introduction done. You've heard enough of me waffling. I'm gonna hand over to the brilliant Kirstie, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So over to you.
Thank you, James. I forgot about that beer.
I know. I still owe you that beer, don't I?
I think you do. Right. I am just going to go ahead and share my screen. And if I go onto slideshow, James, will you give me a thumbs up? It's all good your end? Perfect. So thank you so much for the introduction, and to you and James for inviting me back onto the Marketing Meetup webinar. I really, really appreciate it. And I picked up on something else you said, which is like, I like to give a lot of information. So this is a pre-warning that I am in one of those moods. So I'm going to go through a fair amount today, and I think I will struggle to check the chat as we go. So if there is anything that people would like to know more about, then we can capture it at the end. But please, buckle yourselves in, because there's a lot of slides to go through. I also wanted to say, when Joe first asked me to talk about how to sell on social, he said, I want you to answer the $1 million question, which is, how do you sell on social? That's what everybody wants to know. And I've reflected on this a little bit, and I want to say, like, bear with me on this, because the more I thought about it, I thought, well, there's two different approaches to selling on through social, and I wasn't sure the approach that Joe wanted me to come at it from, because I sell from a cake agency point of view. We are an e-commerce agency, so we are selling direct to consumer, but also I need to bring on new clients, so I'm selling from a business to business point of view as well. And I said to him that, or James and I chatted, actually, James, didn't we? And you were like, well, I think it could be more valuable to the people on the webinar just to talk from your experience about how you sell from a business to business point of view. So I'm going to cover both. And the more I reflected on it, and the more I reflected on that question from Joe about the $1 million question on how to sell, I thought, you know what, the theory isn't too dissimilar for both the D2C and the B2B. And you're not going to like the answer, but the answer is you don't. So I thought, I can't come on this webinar and be like, oh, the answer is you can't sell, because you obviously can. So I'm going to go through tactics, but I think we'll get to the end of this and we'll all talk about how social media is so much more than that, and the sales will come through it, but there is no magic bullet. So I'm pre-warning everybody. So this is what we're going to unpack over the next 30 minutes. To start with, I thought, being sociable people, and we're here to talk about social media, it would be awesome to connect. So my LinkedIn is my preferred, and I've already sent my link. So please, do connect with me over there. James already mentioned all the different things I do. So depending on what you're interested in, follow me on those channels. But I have put Social Circle here to be followed on as well, because like I said, we're here to talk about social media, and it's my absolute passion and an event I run. So please follow me over there as well. So I'm only going to give you guys a quick background, because I've got a lot to unpack in the next 30 minutes. But just to set a little bit of the scene on my experience and my background, I started off after university. I did a creative degree at university and went into retail. That was around 20 years ago, believe it or not. And around 15 years ago, I moved into marketing side, agency side. So I fused together my love of retail and my love of marketing and creative, and moved and worked in an agency, which was just like incredible. I couldn't believe that this was a career that I could have. I started in social media marketing around 10 years ago, and I really felt like it really fused my love of art and science together. But 10 years ago, all we needed to worry about was a 30-day content plan that you'd write for Twitter. It would be on a Word doc, and there might be, a client would sign it off and you'd put your graphics in and share it. And it's changed so much since that time, but I've always really tried to innovate through my entire career in social media. And an example I've used here for a leisure retail brand, we should call it. We were really pushing the boundaries of how those social channels were used back, years ago when I worked for the brand you guys can see on the screen. And we wanted to ensure that we weren't just utilizing the platform for a one-way conversation and sharing posts, that we were actually surprising and delighting and listening to conversations and rewarding people for their positive community engagement. So I've worked with some big brands. I've worked with the brands that I worked with this company. We were dealing with 10,000 mentions per month on social. So this really changed my opinion of social being that place where you publish content. It's that place where those conversations were happening, and it was how you utilized that army of fans that you had for good. So that's a little bit about my background. My day-to-day now, I'm an agency director at Cake Agency. We support over 15 apparel and fashion and lifestyle brands with their social commerce strategy as part of their broader, wider e-commerce strategy. So hence why I've also got experience of selling direct to consumer as well. I would say that I know a bit, but it's this absolutely incredible team that you see on this screen behind me that are the experts when it comes to direct to consumer social sales. So I will be talking about that a little bit, but if there are other things that you want to know about, then I can put you in touch with the right people over at Cake. Outside of work, like James mentioned, I also run Social Circle. Now, this is, I guess you could call it a social selling technique because it's a networking event, but really at the heart of it, I do it because I just absolutely love chatting about social media and helping people unpack their problems. I also know that social media is a bit of a lonely place for a lot of social media managers, or lots of companies have one person that does everything in social, or a small team. So we did this so we could get together and really have a chat about all those new things that were happening. And it keeps me up to date. So selfishly, it forces me to make sure I know what's going on in the industry. So I run it with these lovely ladies here. I also should just mention I teach at BCU as well, and I do that to keep me up to speed with what's going from a theory point of view, and to make sure that I'm sharing some of these great campaigns that I'm working across with the next wave of digital natives that are coming through. So that's a bit about my background to set you some context. I just want to reiterate that when Joe asked me to speak, I thought, I will talk about D2C because it's what we do from a Cake point of view. But no, I'm actually going to talk about more of a B2B selling point of view. So bear with me. I am not a business to business. I would not say I'm a business to business selling expert, but I'm talking about this from my own experience and some of the theory that we put in place. I'm going to show you exactly how we do that. So I'd love to get everybody's feedback. I also took on a new role at Cake of looking after new business a year ago. And I remember having a panicked call with James. I think we had a coffee about how do you do this? How do you sell? And actually we met up for another coffee and we laugh about it now because I'm like, it's exactly what I know. I've been in marketing for 15 years. It's the same theory. You just apply it to your own business. So so maybe I am qualified to talk about it. So I'm going to start off by saying I'm going to unpack the difference a little bit between what social commerce and social selling is, because I think there is some confusion even between myself, James and Joe, around what these two things were. So I thought this was a really good thing to actually talk about. What is the difference between these two things? And actually, I'm going to prove that there is a slight difference, but the theory behind how you apply them stays the same. But before I come into what they are, I thought I couldn't start this webinar and talk about social media without actually just harking back to what social media used to be back in my day when I was creating my 30-day Twitter plans. That was old social media. It used to just be about sharing great content and posting it to the feed. Social media today, and I stand by this, is the hardest job in marketing. It's that mix of art and science. It is community management. You're looking after your customers. You've got to build a community and engage with them. It's also a huge advertising platform. And there's influencers and creators and earned media opportunities you can work on. It's where we're building our personal brands from a business to business relationship point of view. It is all of those things combined. But actually, when I came back to creating this webinar deck, I thought, at the heart of it, though, it is still old social media. And at the heart of selling on social, it still comes back to sharing that great content. So although as social media marketers and using social media, there's all those things to really consider, we need to make sure at its core that content marketing, no matter if it's D2C or B2B, is what social media is there for. The clue is also in the name. It's social media. and it is there for people to socialize. It is not there for people to sell through. It is there because people have had a hard day at work and they want to have a little scroll through TikTok just to take their mind off it. It is there because they want to stalk their old friends from school to see who's had a baby or whatever's going on. So we need to keep that in mind, that it is just another channel that we're using, and it is not at heart a sales tool. So I'm now going to dig into the difference between social commerce and social selling. So social commerce, in its simplest form, is social media and online shopping. Social commerce is where a customer goes through the entire journey from discovering, considering a purchase, all the way to the checkout happens right there in the social media platform. They can check out, they can get their delivery notifications. It all happens in that platform. It's not to be ignored. It is absolutely huge. And the estimated value of social commerce will reach 2.9 trillion by 2026. This is already here. This is already happening. So all of the key social platforms that are mentioned across the bottom here already have the ability to have a shop integrated, and you can check out in the platform. So I had to make room for the little Twitter logo when I updated my slides, because Twitter has just launched shopping in the US. So a little bit late to the party, but you can already check out through all of these channels. Now, there's so much to go through. I'm not going to go through all of these individually, but they are worth looking at. And if anybody wants more information about how to do it across those channels, then please let me know. I would say that there is almost like another layer of the future of social commerce and where it's going. And that for me is shopping live. So we had a great talk by Social Jazz at Social Circle a few months ago. And she said TikTok shopping is like the QVC for Gen Z. And I absolutely loved this. And if you're not really familiar with what's happening from a social commerce point of view, please go in and have a look at the shops that are there on the social platforms. But that really is the bottom of funnel conversion tactics that are happening. And the activity that is happening from a social commerce across all of these platforms is absolutely incredible. So social commerce is sometimes confused with social selling, but the key difference is social selling is the process of building relationships to later make a sale. And I think that is really key, that one line. It's the process of building relationships. The sale is not happening through social media, but it's allowing people to start the conversations with a view that the prospect transact offline. And that's why I think social commerce is usually direct to consumer and social selling is more of a business to business sales approach. But that is the key difference, that the relationship is built, but people do not transact actually through the channel itself. One of the core things when we think about social selling is we probably think straight away about LinkedIn. And I am going to touch a little bit on LinkedIn later, but I wanted this slide really resonated with me, because James also asked me this. He was like, oh, are you going to talk about how people just spam you on LinkedIn with messages? And I'm like, no, not really, because that's not what I consider. And James was like, good, because it's annoying. But we are going to talk about LinkedIn a little bit later. But there is so much more to social selling than just the messaging people. And LinkedIn have a social selling index where if you Google LinkedIn social selling index, you can go to a tool and it looks at all your LinkedIn activity and gives you a score. Now, this really resonated with me because none of these metrics say how many messages were sent, how many leads were generated, or how many sales were closed. It's all about, as you can see, like establishing your personal brand. Are you having the right conversations? Are you building the right relationships? So I thought even LinkedIn themselves are making sure that they're not rewarding for that activity that I think is really starting to irk everybody so much. Social media. This is my final slide talking about the universe of social media, because otherwise it would just blow my mind and it's just too much to talk about. It's such a big task. So I'm not, like I said, going to go into these are all the social channels and this is how you sell through them. I think I couldn't do a talk without just touching on how huge it is. 43 billion active social media users worldwide, and 21% growth between October 19 and October 20. It's just getting bigger and bigger. So I wanted to put this in here for two reasons: to say, yes, it's huge, but also to say, don't get overwhelmed by it. Do not get overwhelmed. And we're going to come on later to talk about, there's all this happening, but actually you just need to be in the channels that are relevant for you. And remember that they're not sales channels. So we need to be looking at where the conversation should be happening and where you're driving people to. And I don't know if Gus is on the call, but thank you to him because he shared this amazing graphic. Final slide on theory, or final two slides on theory before I go into tactically how you can apply this. But I thought it couldn't be a sales presentation without a sales funnel. And I'm like, everyone's like, oh yeah, sales funnel. But I had to include a sales funnel because social tactics for social selling do cover the entirety of the sales funnel, but doesn't mean that you have to do everything on social media. But the beauty of social, going back to that graphic where there's all that activity and all the different areas of it, you can use social media to reach a new audience, find people, find your audience, target them, show them relevant content, reach a cold audience, B2B and D2C. You can use social media to help them consider you, to share relevant content to engage them, be that a video piece of content, be that a white paper that you're going to download, be that a virtual reality trying on tool from a direct consumer point of view. There's still ways on social to make that happen. Conversion, like we said, will happen. It can happen from a social commerce point of view, doesn't happen from a social selling point of view, but it can happen through social media. And the most probably important is the re-engagement piece as well. Making sure that once you've maybe garnered a new follower through social media, or they've purchased from you and they're following you, what are you doing to make sure that they don't leak out the bottom of the funnel, that you're getting them to come back round? So I am sorry, I have put a funnel in, but I also wanted to put a funnel in to take my next slide, which is some further theory on social selling, which I wanted to show a breakdown, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but how through your funnel, social media tactics can include paid media activity, so paying for those impressions, owned media activity, so your organic posts, your organic content you're sharing, and probably the most important, the one we all forget about, is earned media activity. So working with others that have reach, working with creators, or working with partners, or collaborating with people to make sure you're reaching their audience. So if I was going to take away any slide, and if I was going to audit or have a look at what my future strategy was from D2C or B2B, I would start by this table or this tool and whiteboarding this. I would have a look at, honestly, which parts of the funnel are we running any activity in, and then start to think about, well, how do we plug that funnel? So if you're not doing enough from a paid media point of view, can you utilize that to reach more people, for instance? So it could be used as a bingo scorecard, fill it out, and then plug the gaps in that funnel. So I hope that resonates, and I hope that takes your sales funnel and sprinkles a bit of extra magic social media dust onto it. So, okay. Theory aside, we've looked at what the difference between social selling and social commerce is. We know it's upon us. We know that it can happen through paid, owned, and earned tactics. It's sales. There's a funnel. People don't just know about us. We need to help them reach, we need to help them and be aware of us all the way through. I wanted to now put this in a bit of context because, yeah, it's a sales funnel, it's theory, everyone knows that. But like I said, when I chatted to James about this, I was like, yeah, I do this. I've got a funnel and I've plugged it and it's working, and we've got loads of activity and loads of it happens on social. So I'm going to show you guys now how we put some of that theory into action. Okay. So if I'm going to show you how to put this in action, I thought I'm going to do 2 slides just to let you know what I do, what I've got to sell. So at Cake, as I mentioned, we support e-commerce brands with branding, strategy, creative, websites, apps, and marketing services. So these are the services that I'm selling. oh, there's loads I could sell. So here's an overview of some stuff that we could sell. So am I trying to sell SEO services? Is there a new client that needs a new website? Or does somebody need some consultancy from us? Wow, there's so much to go at. How do I start by selling our proposition from a business to business point of view? All well and good, but I'm not going to start there with what I've got to sell. I'm going to step one step back, and I'm going to work out what my objectives are. So we work out our business objectives using a framework called OKRs. Now, these can work from a business to business point of view, and you can apply them to your brand. So they can be applied to brands or businesses. But OKRs are a Google framework that help us work out what our objectives are. And an objective would be a qualitative statement. And once we understand what our business objective is, we start to map out, well, what are the key results that I can measure? So what is a quantitative measurable against that objective? None of that really involves social, but why would I start a load of social media activity to support the marketing activity if I don't know what the business objectives were? So we map that out first. Then when it gets to the third step, we start mapping out, well, what initiatives do I need to do? What tactics do I need to deploy to make sure that my key results are hit? This is when we start talking about what needs to be done on social. And then finally, like any good framework, we've got to check in to make sure it works. So still not really here thinking about how I'm selling on social, but I'm starting by understanding what it is I need to achieve. So I'm only going to tell you guys one of our business objectives. So the first one I'm going to give you just for context of my social selling strategy. As a business, we want to stand out in a commoditized marketplace. So if this is our objective, some of our key results, so the OKR, the key results, well, how do I know that I'm standing out in a commoditized marketplace? Well, I'm going to generate more leads. My conversion rate is going to increase, and I'm going to sell X amount of the products that I've defined that I'm going to sell this quarter. And I also know I'm going to do it because I'm going to stand out strategically by having a strategic resource or a lead tool to help my customers. So those are some of the things that I know I can measure. So with that in mind, I'm like, okay, so I know what I've got to achieve. I know how I'm going to do it, but who am I going to talk to? Because still I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got these social channels. I've got thousands of people I could go for. I've got LinkedIn. I've got Twitter. I've got YouTube. I mean, Google. Where do I start? The next thing I do is actually look at, okay, well, who is it? Where do I need to fish for? If I'm going to throw my sales funnel net out there, how wide do I need to throw it? Is it a small net that's just capturing that? Actually, it would be a big net for a whale, but is it a small net that I'm actually saying I'm only going to capture a few people, or am I going to put a big net out? So the reason we used fry, tuna and whales is because for every 50 small fry that I need to capture in my net, I probably only need one whale. But actually, what we're looking for is that sweet spot in the middle. We're looking for those tuners. We're looking for those customers that are right for us. And this will apply to, I'm sure, all brands and businesses. There are going to be customers that just aren't right for you. So it's finding out who you want to fish for, and then we can have a look at where we want to fish. So to put some context around this, I'm going to introduce you to Mark. So Mark is my tuner, and I have worked with Mark for 2 years. He runs Bad Monday Clothing, and I keep Mark in mind because I want to catch more Marks. He's my tuner. This is who I love to work with. He's a great fit for us. He needs our help. We know we can offer him great service and product. He's right in our sweet spot. So we print Mark out. Well, we don't need to. Everyone knows who Mark is. And we know that we're talking to our Marks. So keep Mark in mind. You know, he's an entrepreneur. He runs his own business. He's really creative, but he's going to have his pain points. He's got, you know, targets of his own he needs to hit, and he's going to have trouble with his team or whatever it may be. So we really get to understand who Mark is. So I know what I want to achieve. I know I've got some goals I've got to hit. I know who I'm fishing for, and I know it's somebody like Mark. I want to get more Marks. Now I'm going to take you through my 7 tactics, because to get Mark, I know I'm not just going to be able to message Mark on LinkedIn and be like, hey, Mark, do you need support with your SEO services? Or does your website convert how you want it to be? Because he's already told me that he hates LinkedIn because he gets 50 of those a day and he thinks it's a complete joke, you know, like okay, you know, I know he's not going to be there. I need to actually put my my Mark hat on, like, where is Mark and how am I going to reach him? We also know someone's not just going to see cake once and be like, oh yeah, I'll have a new website from them, that looks fine. There's going to be 7 on average touch points that they're going to take, digital touch points or real life touch points that they're going to need with cake before they buy from us. So a little bit of marketing mix. Where is Mark? Where's he showing up? He's probably doing a few of all of these things, but let's try not to do everything because we're going to get overwhelmed. He's not on LinkedIn. He's on Insta. So probably need to make sure we're there. We're doing some cool stuff on Instagram. He's definitely chatting to other brand owners. There's definitely some dark social happening. And what I mean by that is social media activity that we can't see. It's happening in WhatsApp. It's happening in Messenger. Could we even say Slack? There's those networks that are happening where those conversations are happening. And he'll be searching. If he hears us about it and be like, oh, let's have a look, see what their reviews are like. So I'm getting a view here of where Mark is showing up. So once I've got that, I'm like, okay, so I need some marks. I don't need that many because I'm not, we're not that big as a business, but I know I need to be really pointed. So I'm going to make my funnel really narrow. I'm not going to throw out a big net and do a huge, big advertising campaign because there's only going to be so many marks that I can reach. So we have 2 approaches: account-based marketing, where I'm like, these are the brands that I want to go for. And we do have a bit of a broad throw the net out marketing approach as well. So I'm going to go through account-based first, and there's a couple of other tactics when we throw the net wider. So we choose who they are, we find out who they are, we make our list. There could be 5, 10, 15, 100 people. Who is that hit list that we're going for? It's going to be different for every business. The most important part is the hook. So I know I want to Mark, but what does he actually care about? What value am I going to give him? So we have a hook for Mark. The conversion, the sale, not going to happen on social. So let's just park that. We've known that. But the re-engagement could. So making sure that we're keeping him happy could happen on social. So I've now got my plan. I know where Mark is. I know I've got some ideas of what I'm going to do. So what I'm now going to show you guys is 7 touch points. So what do we do? How do we sell on social? I'm going to work back up the funnel just because it made a little bit more sense for me to present it to you guys. So once Mark's a customer and our other customers are customers, there's some stuff we want to do to keep them happy. So they share that bottom of the funnel activity and they get more tuners back in. We send people a cake. This cake was actually sent to us, but we send people a cake. And you might think, well, that's not social. But the chances are, if you get a cake, you're going to share it on your social channels. So yeah, it's offline to online. They get a cake. If they're good, they get an ambassador card, or if they're a partner of the business, we send them something that makes them feel like a VIP. Again, it's a conversation starter. It might be happening through dark social. These conversations are happening. We also send everybody a retail calendar. It's printed, it arrives in a tube, it's an experience, it might get shared on LinkedIn, etc. So there's tactics that are happening that you think, that is still social selling. It's still earned media happening through social. One step back up the funnel, we have a couple of lead tools. We ask people to download a white paper to find out how much a website costs, or if they want to, we'll do an audit of a little bit of their brand for them. Again, not happening on social, but this is the key hook that we're using to create the rest of our social content further up the funnel. So we've got some great lead tools that we're sharing with people. And if they arrive on the page and they leave, we are doing what we say we do for our brands and practicing what we preach, and we're retargeting them with an ad. So we've got a lovely creative ad that retargets people to bring them back to the site. So again, it's like very subtle social selling, but it's reminding people that we're there, and that runs for 30 days after they've visited our website. One step up the funnel, like I said, we've got those lead tools to talk about. We can be sharing that content through social. We can be boosting that content or using it in advert campaigns. But right at the top of the funnel, there's some other activity that happens. So here's another 3 tactics that we use that aren't necessarily driven through social, but earned media worthy. So we send people a calendar. So we have hit list and we really want to work with them and we really want to add value, we send them a free calendar. We send postcards out with cool case studies and campaigns we've done, with a view that it's quite a nice thing. They might put it in their wall. A lot of them are about Birmingham as well, so it's heroing the city that we live in. We also have a couple of podcasts that, like James mentioned, that we run. So actually, like, is there something that we think could be useful for them on our podcast, or could we invite them on our podcast? So you're seeing now we're building a bit of a picture that I'm not selling, but I'm contacting people with a reason. And each one of them, every mark that we reach out to, we've researched them and made sure we understand what would be useful for them. Top of the funnel, more tactics that roll out through social, but none of this is really branded too cakey or as about our services. We run events and we talk on events and we talk on webinars. So actually what I'm doing today is social selling. I'm giving you guys all this value, but all the chatter that's been happening on LinkedIn and through my own social channels, because I've shared this opportunity, is also really helping at the top of the funnel. So I feel like there's more than 7 touch points there, right? There are 7 things that could be happening before someone feels confident to sell with us. Those are all, in my mind, outreach tactics, or quite pointed tactics. From a D2C point of view, or where if you wanted to throw your net wider, you can do that as well. But I think we need to know that if we've got a fat sales funnel, there's going to be a lot more in it. There's a lot more to deal with. And there's a lot more qualification that needs to happen to make sure that you're weeding people out and you're still focusing on your funnel. So the broad funnel, the fat funnel still works the same, but to have a fatter funnel or reach more people at the top, you need to spend a bit more time in that awareness stage. So rather than your account-based marketing targeting certain people, this is when we would start using broad advertising techniques through social. We still like to link it back to our campaign. So we have 2 campaigns running that are reaching targeted audience, but they are still driving people to that useful content. It is still asking people if they'd like a free audit, and it's still speaking to people about, do you even know how much a website costs? We can give that information for free. So even though it's top of the funnel, it's still useful. Another broad tactic, and something that me and James debate whether we talk about in this, is LinkedIn and LinkedIn automation. I think there is a place for this, but only used strategically. And if it's part of that broader campaign that we just ran through, if it's part of your activity, then fine. An example of this could be Chris, who is our founder and CEO, is already a thought leader and he already runs a podcast. He would be looking to connect with other chairmen and other thought leaders or other people that are running podcasts, to connect with them and ask them if they wanted to engage or be in the podcast. That feels still like more of a narrow, pointed approach, rather than perhaps what we are all struggling with in 2023, where you get 50 a day and you just delete. So I have heard of some success using these platforms, but please bear in mind, if you are going to use this as your broad brush approach or your fat funnel approach, that it is still adding value and for a purpose. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I know I've probably whittled on a little bit. Another thing from a social point of view is we create content or rich content that we're qualifying people at the same time. So this video lives on our website, and we also use it in some of our top of funnel ads, because a tuner or a mark might look at this and be like, yeah, this looks like the right brand for me, because they are creating work that feels right for me. So don't shy away from showcasing your work, because it will resonate with your customer if they're right for you. Not going to dwell on this, but underpinned, because I'm a good marketer, there's a media plan. So all of those good tactics and all that lovely creative is underpinned by a plan. So you'll see on here some of those things I talked about: stage of the funnel, which OKR does it support, who is the audience, how much are we spending, what are we expecting to get from this. And I haven't put it in here, but this social media plan also underpins your wider marketing plan. So we're talking about social media, so I've already added this in, but it should play into a broader marketing plan, not just on social. So a few final thoughts. I've taken you through social selling, and social commerce. I've then laid it all out and said, this is how we sell on social. I'm hoping that it was interesting, and there are some, even if it's just interesting to see what someone else is doing. But I thought I'd just finish off in case anybody has joined us today to listen about direct to consumer sales. I just added a few other quick rules, but my main takeaway is a lot of that is relevant. A lot of the theory and the approach should work whether you're selling to a person or you're selling to a business, because at the end of the day, when I really dug into this, the same rules apply. I wouldn't call myself a B2B marketer. We work with direct to consumer clients, but actually the more I thought about it, it's still the same. I won't dwell on this because, you know, this isn't what we're here today to talk about, but it is, you still have to understand who they are, their pain points, what the right messaging is, how you're going to segment your audience, which channels they're in, how are you going to reach them. It's the same theory that applies. This is an example here from some creative from some of the direct-to-consumer brands that we work with. But I'd say what I've just taken you through from a B2B point of view, it follows the same. They just can transact and check out directly in the platforms. And at the end of the day, whoever you're selling to, they're still a human. Whatever you're selling, they're a human. So a day in the life of our Mark, or this one is a day in the life of Emily. This doesn't matter if it's a B2B or a D2C campaign. It's still Emily. She's got a job. She might have to do, you know, it doesn't matter. And her day is going to be the same whether you're selling to her from B2B or D2C. She's still going to have to be picking up those kids, or she'll still be going home and scrolling through her Instagram. So don't just consider traditional B2B channels if you are selling from a social selling point of view. I also couldn't talk about it without talking about the numbers. Social selling from a D2C point of view, it's a numbers game. It really is. So your creative can be absolutely incredible, but if the numbers don't add up, it's not worth it. So if you are choosing to sell through social, you really need to consider what your budget is, how many people you're reaching, what it's costing to get them to click and to convert, and work that all backwards. The more I thought about this as well, I thought the same applies from a business to business point of view. You still need to have a look at what that cost per acquisition needs to look like, or what that cost per purchase is going to be, and work all your numbers back from that, because that will show you how far you can throw your net and how many people you can reach. James reminded me of this, and I thought, yeah, this is absolutely so true. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So in terms of your creative and the channels you're in, just because you can advertise in Snapchat or TikTok, should you be there? And if you are going to be there, it should be because your prospects are there or your customers are there. And most importantly, your ad content needs to be tailored to look native in the platforms that it is in. Because how your ad shows up in TikTok is going to be completely to how it needs to look on Instagram. And I could do a whole webinar on that, which I won't, but it's a final reminder. Final reminder as well that you can sell and still be useful. So from a direct to consumer point of view, just because you can reach people and show them your products doesn't mean that it goes straight from here's my product, buy it. There's that middle piece, that consideration piece where as a brand or a business, you can still be useful. And there's lots of cool functionality now across all the social networks that really helps you engage and engage with your potential customers. And yeah, engage them with your brand. I've got dry mouth. And there, I think I've covered a lot of ground. So my last slide is just my wrap up. I've done as much as I can in 30 minutes or however long I've been. I don't know everything. Loads of people know loads more than me. So I've put some of my useful resources that I would use here. We've looked at social commerce, social selling. It's not the same thing. It's about engaging people and building relationships. One of them you check out on the platform, one you don't. The business to business side, it's about the relationships. You do not sell. They will come to you if you add value. Social is just the channel. It's just the platform. The strategy stays the same. So do not think channel first. Think about your strategy, your OKRs, your audience, and then think about how you tactically deploy that through the channels afterwards. I've set the same. So make sure that you're choosing the right platforms for your customer. Where are they? Don't do it all yourself. I didn't talk about this too much, but that earned media, if you're not right for your audience, or your message will sit better with a relevant creator who has permission to talk about it, then utilize them. It doesn't have to be through your organic socials. Work with others. My final thought is social media should be like human conversation. Well, I know I've done a one-way conversation today, but me and James go out for lunch. I don't talk and then leave. It's the same when you talk, when you're having those conversations in social. 2 ears and 1 mouth. So talk, but make sure you're listening to what people are saying and have those two-way conversations. And that's me. That's my final thought. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kirstie. I was putting in the chat, I'm like, that's a lie. She does just talk and talk and talk, as you can imagine. Thank you. Do you want to stop sharing your slides, and I'll ask some of the questions. It's really interesting. I'd written down like the 7 touch points. I think is a brilliant reminder. Like the amount of times that you go, oh, I've got this great thing, this great message, and you send it out and you don't get the results you want, and you become frustrated with your campaign, and you maybe do it 2 or 3 times and then give up. But actually, having 7 touch points is quite a lot. And it reminds me of that book that we were talking about that I read years and years ago by Gary Vaynerchuk, of all people, of jab, 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 right hook. It's it's about delivering value over a long period of time, and slowly sort of building them into your network. So super useful. One of the first questions we got is a really simple one to answer. Is how do people get involved with Social Circle?
Oh, that's nice. So Social Circle is taking a 3-month hiatus. So I can't say, here's the link to our next event. As you know, James, I'm going to have a little bit of time off work, but we'll be back. So I'd say please bear with and stay in touch. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn as our core channels. We're not everywhere because I didn't want to do everything. I chose my channels wisely. So please just keep in touch, and I share all the information about the events on my LinkedIn as well. So please follow us on those channels. And then our next event will be in over the summer. So Q3, Q4 will be the next Social Circle event. And
it's really good. And they actually have enough beer for everybody, unlike when I run Belling. Quick question from Laura. How do you think privacy concerns will impact social commerce?
Oh, well, it already is. It's already impacting social commerce, but I mean, the iOS update that happened last year? I lose track of my years. Was it 21 or 22? Had a huge impact on Meta, but Meta are looking for resolution with that. It's a little bit of a technical one that one of my team will be able to talk about in a lot better detail than I will be able to. But I think the revenue loss from Meta because of the iOS updates has forced their entire team, I think, to focus on how do they get around this. So there are things that are happening to make sure people can get around it. I know Shopify as well are looking at Shopify audiences, where if you are a Shopify merchant, a Shopify store owner, you'll be able to opt in to share your data with other Shopify store owners. So it becomes like a pool of data that is relevant just for Shopify merchants. So there are a couple of things that the big technology providers are coming back with. But yeah, it is going to get more and more difficult. But that's why I think then you've got to try harder and not rely so much just on social media, and make sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket and you're being seen across all of those touch points from a paid, owned and earned point of view.
That's brilliant. Alex is asking about how you obviously it's a passion of yours, and you're reading lots of things and learning. He or she is asking how you stay up to date on social media platforms, sort of changes and trends. Where do you get your info from?
Oh, I think So Baton Hall is a really good resource to look at. They send a daily WhatsApp with all of the new things that are happening. So they're great if you want to know day to day what's happening. There's nothing like doing it yourself, so I can read everything that's happening, and I keep up with a lot of news and try and then run social circle to tell everybody it's happening, but it doesn't actually really sink in until you do it. So although I'm like agency director here at Cake and I've got an awesome team who look after the clients and deploy the campaigns, I still like to run Cake Agencies marketing, or I run social circle, just because if I'm not doing the do, it is so difficult to stay up to date with what's happening. So I'd say even if you're doing it through your personal brand, or there's a small passion project you've got, keep your hands in the platforms, because they do change, and the best way to do it is be in it.
Yeah, that's I completely agree with that. Like, I have something that's completely not related to marketing and video, more to do with cycling, and it's, you know, on YouTube, and I get to just learn, make all my mistakes, and you start to spot things when you're uploading videos, and you go, oh, hang on, that's a, and then you can give that kind of advice to clients. I would give a shout out to our friend Andy Lambert as well, who works for Adobe. He is prolific with the kind of updates that he gives on TikTok, and
he's amazing.
Yeah, so that's always a good resource. So from somebody anonymous, how do you demonstrate the ROI of social media and social selling when the purchase time is very long, e.g. buying a house/car?
Okay, so what was that? How do you attribute?
So how can you kind of track the ROI, or can you do that up for something like a house or a car on a big purchase?
I don't have any, I've never sold a house or a car, so I can't claim to know the length of that selling cycle. My direct consumer experience is definitely more in a lower price point. So I don't know, but I think, well, it would be the same as how you'd attribute it if it was not social media. But it's a really difficult one. I think sometimes you have to look at one core. You have to trust one platform. Okay, so let's take Google Analytics, because all the social platforms will have their own way of reporting. But if you want that single point of truth, pick that one platform. I know there's lots of cool attribution platforms out there, and we've tested a number of them. But actually, single point of truth, take Google Analytics. It's last click. I think you have to be comfortable in the knowledge that you do need that range of tactics happening. But it's having that one number. So we track marketing cost of sale as our golden kind of number from a B2B or a D2C point of view. How much money am I spending, and how much revenue am I creating? So marketing cost of sale is marketing, your total revenue divided by the amount you're spending on your marketing spend. It's your true ROI. So we track that on a weekly basis. All of the other channels will be playing their part. So it is measuring those. But sometimes you just have to understand the theory and know that you're going to need to do a bit of a top of the funnel awareness activity, because you'll still soon be able to start plugging that funnel. You'll still be able
it's really interesting. So I work with some house builders, and you know, like, we might put a video on about the new show home, which will get people to come down and visit the new show home, but then making that link between them coming to the show home and the video that they've watched, or like, it's very hard. And the reality is, things like builders spend the majority of their marketing budgets on Rightmove, because that's where people are looking for houses, and that's where they can then, you know, say, oh, well, the lead came from Rightmove, and therefore, you know, that's where we need to spend our money. The reality is, you know, you talked about the 7 touch points. There's all this stuff that goes with it, which is brand, that's built in order to sell the home in the first place. So it's a hard one. Attribution is definitely a tricky one, but I like the way you divide that down.
Yeah, and from the B2B point of view, I will just tell you, it's actually, James, that we had somebody get in contact with us recently because they saw an email that I sent them, but she was like, oh, I recognised your name because I saw you speak at the marketing meetup.
Yes.
7 in action. And I was like, there we go. And that was 2 years later that she was like, I recognized your name. I looked up on LinkedIn and realized I remembered that you did a talk.
It's interesting.
So actually something 2 years later is now having an impact.
Yeah.
So every time I get invited to do something amazing like this, and you're like, God, I'm nervous, it's going to be awful. I'm like, well, actually, it is solid. It does work. It just is really hard to measure.
So we'll invite you back in 2 years' time and see how many sales go out of the webinar. So we've only got a few minutes left, but Fiona's got a question. How are you able to split up purchases from organic and paid, or what's come through from organic originally, but maybe gone back via the site or in store? When there are multiple agencies on the account, everyone's trying to claim the sale. So, they want to attribute accurately. Like, is it accurate, or is it a case of like everyone just claims their part of the pie?
I think it goes back to that attribution. I think from the offset, you need to work out the agency, whoever is the core key stakeholder from your client side. I think that needs to be agreed, doesn't it? Everyone needs to measure in the same way. We're lucky, touch wood, that a lot of the size of the brands that we work with, that we look after the whole piece. So we don't often get caught in that fight. But I can imagine that it's quite difficult. Sorry, James, I missed the name of that person, but
yeah, sorry, I've answered. Oh, hang on.
It might be one to follow me on email, and I'll put you in touch with Katie, who will have a much better answer to me of how we're tracking, especially organic and paid.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. She says, okay, fab. Thank you. Cool. Okay. So this is Natasha is asking, which of the social commerce platforms you find most successful? And I guess this depends on which client, but if you're forced by resource to choose one, which would it be, and which e-commerce platforms sync best in your experience, e.g. Shopify, WooCommerce?
Great question. And I do have an answer for that. If I broad brush had to pick one, I'd pick Meta. So Meta allows you to split your budget across Instagram, Facebook and Messenger, because Meta owns all of those. Meta is by far, I think, the most advanced in terms of the targeting and the options that you get. It's still likely to still be the biggest audience, unless, for instance, you are speaking to I don't know, a subset of potentially like a younger audience, and you know that they're on TikTok, or you feel your brand or business would work in TikTok. But I think if you're starting out, I would choose Meta and I would choose Shopify. They sync with each other. It's really easy to set it all up, and it's a great place to start. Shopify do like a starter package as well, so it is really easy to get set up for not very much money per month, and then obviously linking that to Meta is free if you've got a Facebook page. So that's where I'd start.
Thanks, Kirstie. Okay, one more question just before we finish up. Kim Waters asked, I've noticed more and more small local businesses not using hashtags in their social media, and yet still getting great likes, engagement on their post. Is this a new big trend or a big mistake?
Which is it, on LinkedIn? Or does it just say social?
Just on social media. So
I wouldn't use any hashtags on Facebook unless you wanted competition entries or something like that. I think Instagram and LinkedIn, there's still a place, but use them sparingly, and either use them because it's a campaign that you're running and you want to be able to measure the impact of how many times that hashtag is being used, or use them because there's a trend that you recognize and you feel permission to be part of that trend. So I'd say there's still a place for hashtags. Why not?
But more importantly, just make your content really good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Well, that's great. Well, we've pretty much run out of time, but thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Kirstie, for your amazing advice. Make sure you go and connect with Kirstie afterwards. She's a brilliant person to have in your life. But also, if you can go and thank our sponsors, that would mean the world to me and Joe, and also just go and tell everybody about what we're doing here, and so we can get more people along next time. But once again, thanks so much. Thanks for all your support, and well done, Kirstie. And we'll catch you next week.
Yep, great. Thanks, guys.